In boardrooms across the world, something powerful is happening. The agenda is still numbers, risk, and strategy, but people around the tables are changing. Investors want sharper governance, regulators want visibility and accountability, employees and customers want leaders who can explain, not just execute. In this new era, having a great executive career is no longer enough. The real question is your career truly boardroom ready? Right now, thousands of seasoned CXOs, founders, and senior leaders are sensing transition. They have built empires, led transformation, survived crisis. Yet, when it comes to stepping into boardrooms as an independent director or non-executive director or a chair, they realize something uncomfortable. Their CV, content, and mindset that worked for executive success do not automatically translate into boardroom credibility. Strategy and growth now demand different perspective, posture, a different story, and a different presence. Before we dive into the topic, let's have a small video about power of knowing. Our guest today has spent decades at the intersection of leadership, physiology, storytelling, boardroom positioning. Dr. Amit Nagpal is a coach to aspiring independent directors and C-suite leaders, known for crafting strategies, storytelling, personal branding, and boardroom presence that actually move nomination communities. With 29 years of experience, he helps leaders re-architect their narrative across technology, cybersecurity, strategy, and growth so they can earn the trust at the time of board, not just a title on LinkedIn. He understands where executives get stuck, a CV that reads like a job description, not a board asset map, content that screams operator when the board wants a governor, a mindset still wired or for control, not oversight and stewardship. Today, we decode that transition. Let's welcome Dr. Amit Nagpal to the Power Knowing platform and start the discussion. Sir, good evening. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Uh, a very good evening, Prem Kumar, and thanks for the invitation.
Sir, let's dive into the topic because what are the fundamental changes when successful executives decide to become a boardroom ready, sir?
I think, like I say that you if you want a governance role, then throw away your executive dictionary and buy a governance dictionary. So that is a metaphor in terms of your CV has to change, your content and brand has to change, and your mindset also has to change. These are the three areas where you have to bring that change to move from an executive role to to a governance role, or as you said, from an operator to a governor.
So where do even highly accomplished CXOs underestimate the gap between operational leadership and board level stewardship, sir?
Yes, executive make this mistake or fall into this gap or pitfall that their executive achievements will translate into a governance role, not understanding the huge difference between the approaches. It is like not about the daily operations or day-to-day strategies. It is thinking in decades instead of quarters. It is like the governors, the board, the directors are the conscience and the compass of the organization. So your thinking has to shift in so many ways, from short term to long term, from maybe daily targets to ethics. And, like you said, these four areas: technology, cybersecurity, strategy, and growth. So your focus has to shift more from a day-to-day perspective to a long-term strategic perspective.
Sir, if you had to finish a sentence, a board will never appoint just because you were a great executive. How do you complete it, sir?
Yes, a board will never appoint you if you have been a great executive and you have not developed the governance mindset, not learnt the governance language, and started acting as if you are already governing, or using the governance signaling or governance language.
I think what you are saying is the mindset shift is what we are looking from control to oversight,
Right.
from defending to questioning, and from functional excellence to looking at enterprise risk or value creation is what we are saying, because bringing the global boardroom expectations is governance, ESG, and cyber risk, AI, and culture. So I think that's the whole gamut that they have to look at, and we'll have to see if the leader is in a position to get into that role. Is what you're saying? Am I right in saying that?
Yes, and to harness the AI tools, you have to be great at asking the right questions. In fact, that is the similarity with the boardroom. You have to be great at asking the right questions in the boardroom.
Okay. What risks and opportunity do I see a board would care about, sir?
Yes, the board would care about your lens to see the risks. These risks can be cybersecurity risks, these risks can be technology disruption risks, these risks can be ethical risk. We can take the recent examples. So many examples are there, from a very recent Indigo to that blue smart, that cab ride, or so there have been so many examples in terms of the risks, where boards have maybe lacked that judgment. They have not been able to predict the risks. And secondly is the opportunities to grow, the opportunities to diversify. Because I also say that the board is someone which decides the playground. What are the boundaries of the playground, and then
Mhm.
the executive team has to play within those boundaries, within that direction set by the compass.
Now, what you're saying is they have to look at overall, is what you're saying, right, sir? And in what decisions have influenced beyond the function? Because many people restrict themselves, saying that this is my function, and beyond that, I will not talk and stuff like that. So, your take on those kind of leaders? How do we look at bringing them to the board level? Because they have to look at larger pictures, right?
Yes. Yeah, so that's a very important shift or mindset shift. So let's take it in two ways.
Hmm.
Okay, one is, as head of the marketing, your function ends with marketing, but at the board level, you don't end with a particular function. You have to participate in all the, maybe your contribution is more in audit committee or CSR committee, but when there is a more board meeting, then you are participating in all the functions of the board. Okay, so you are not limited to a certain box in that sense, or a certain function in that sense. Another thing is that, at executive level, your language would be maybe I, or maximum it would be my team. The marketing team has done it, or my team has done. But at the board level, the language has to shift, because there is no I in the boardroom. It is we. There is group decision making in each and every item on the agenda.
Sorry, sir, I was on mute. Sorry. How do I demonstrate that independent? I am an independent thinking within an thinker within a independent executive role. Sir.
Yes, so that is another, very important characteristic, especially, and it becomes even more relevant as an independent director. Your judgment, your thinking, you have to demonstrate that it is independent or neutral. Like, I came across this example where this independent director helped in the conflict resolution, and the conflict was between the promoter and the investor. Now he really, like we say, he acted as an independent director, truly independent in that sense, that both the parties trusted him with the resolution of the conflict, and he was able to resolve the conflict staying neutral and independent. So that's where, you need to have your independence, sense of judgment. That's a very important quality or skill at the, as an independent director.
Sir, I think what you are saying, being an executive is your ticket to the building, not your guarantee to the seat in the boardroom. That's what you are saying, and I think that's the way you will have to look at. Now, how should an executive CV transform when goal shifts from next role to first board seat? See, normally people say I've been a, senior manager here or senior leader here and stuff, but does that kind of an experience really look has to be looked at in the CV for a board level? Is what I wanted to understand.
Yes. So there again, there has to be a huge shift in your language. For example, instead of saying I own the outcome at executive level, we talk about ownership. You
Yeah.
know, so here, we talk about at the board level. You will say, I take accountability. I take responsibility. I take this thing for the outcome. In terms of, I take accountability for the outcome. Okay, so your focus is on outcomes in terms of accountability, not in terms of, being responsible.
Now, what are the non-negotiable sections a board focused CV must have that a traditional CV usually should ignore?
Right. So, like, continuing with your previous question and then moving on to this. So, there are certain areas, which may become your bridge from the executive role to the board role. Okay. So, let me give some examples. Compliance can be one of the areas which is common between the executive role and the board role. CSR can be one common area. Strategic leadership can be one common area. So there are certain areas in the executive role which are helpful for the board role. So those keywords will, they will move from your executive role to the board CV also. But rest of the things, the rest of the language, will be totally different in terms of, like, executive CV has a lot of focus on, the corporate love for numbers, metrics. I increased the profit by 35%. That I took the turnover to $200 billion, or 33% increase in profit. So those metrics, from those metrics you move to a different mindset. You talk about oversight, you talk about strategic direction in terms of choosing organic versus inorganic growth strategy. You talk about, growth with ethics. You talk about maybe ethical marketing. You talk about, like, take the case of HR. In HR at an executive level, you might talk about, HR being a business partner, but at the board level, you will talk about people and culture, the importance of culture, at the board level, at the organization level, that becomes critical at the board. And, we have that famous quote, culture eats, this thing for breakfast. So culture, things like culture, which decide the strategy, the which decides the direction of the organization. So these kind of topics, become important at the board level. So anything which demonstrates your judgment, which demonstrates your strategic thinking, which demonstrate your, ethical leadership, strategic decision making. So those things, become important in the governance CV.
Sorry, sir. One more point which I want to understand is what is one CV? I will call it as a CV sin, if you really say, is that instantly tells nomination committee that candidate is still thinking like an application, not as a board member. Is there anything that you can look at that view there, sir, or give some inputs on that, sir?
Right. So one thing I would again repeat is, too much focus on operational activities and, job description. So that is one thing which should be completely avoided in a board CV.
So what you're saying is the board will look at the skill metrics, the governance exposure, committee experience, and risk and compliance understanding, stakeholder management, which I think is the key thing where you look at project management or program management, which we talk about when we look at the board, say which programs, what kind of stakeholders, those things has to be something that has to be mentioned or listed out in the CV, which stands out apart from what the regular CV looks. Something like that, rather than having a lot of technology skills or related skills only, not giving them the idea of what board level decisions they were part of. Right? So, am I right in saying that, sir?
Yes. So, to simplify it, maybe one thing before you create the board CV, you can take a look at the typical board committees, which will give you the idea of the board keywords. Like you talked about, stakeholder management is
Yes.
stakeholder is one of the board committees. Technology and digital transformation is one of the board committees. Board does not have a marketing committee. Okay,
Okay.
for example. So board doesn't have a HR committee, but it has a nomination and remuneration committee.
Hmm.
So these board committees actually give you a very good overview in terms of what is the role of the board and what are the skills from your executive role which you can bring to the board CV and what you should not bring to the board CV. So board has an executive committee which is more focused on the strategy. Board has ethics and compliance committee. Some organizations, in fact, you will always find every organization will have one or two committees which are more related to that particular industry or sector. For example, in Tata Steel, I saw a safety and hygiene committee because in steel industry, things like safety are very critical. So there is a
Hmm.
dedicated safety and hygiene committee in Tata Steel. So each industry will have, those kind of specific, committees. But these committees will actually give you a very good idea of the functioning of the board. In any case, this is something which most of the people don't know at executive role. Since the board meets only 4 times in a year, though for those quarterly meetings and quarterly reviews, most of the board work is actually done by the committees. So even at the appointment level, what the NRC committee would initially screen and what the board of directors will finally focus on the interview is whether you fit into the committee where they need the person. For example, let's say a company is looking for an independent director and they have only one or two people in the technology committee and they want to strengthen the technology committee. So your this thing background in technology at a strategic level, this digital transformation, those things become very important, in your selection process.
So what does a strategic storytelling look like when audience in the board nominate committee, not hiring managers? How do you look at that point, sir?
Yeah, so when you are doing strategic storytelling as a personal branding tool or as a narrative building tool, as in terms of sharing your fit for the governance role, there the strategic storytelling again has to focus. For example, it has to focus on your judgment under pressure. There are certain things which, of course, number one, for example, board at the board level, the stakes are very high. Maybe a board committee is going to take a decision, board meeting, the board is going to take a decision on a new 1000 crore rupee factory which is going to come up. Okay, so the stakes are very high. So in that sense, you have to be really smart enough to respond rather than react, do things thoughtfully, have that long term mindset. So that becomes very important at the board level.
Now, how can leaders retell their career stories so that it highlights judgment, governance, and long-term value, not just execution?
Right. So leaders have to find these, like I said, there are certain areas which are common between the executive and the board role. So leaders need to introspect, do some kind of self storytelling exercise to find out which stories from my career are relevant at the board level. Like one example which I gave you was judgment under pressure.
Hmm.
Okay. Another example would be maybe a strategic leadership decision. Maybe you were part of the decision in terms of the whether to go ahead with the merger or acquisition or not. You were part of the decision to decide on go for organic growth or inorganic growth. So these are strategic leadership decisions. So demonstrating your involvement in such decisions, demonstrating your involvement in stakeholder relationships. Like I said, CSR is a common area between even ESG. If you look at it, what is ESG, which is the popular buzzword now. ESG is also about the environment, and S is about social responsibility or CSR, and G is about corporate governance.
Governance, right.
So even ESG has social responsibility as one of its important, components. So your experience with CSR, in terms of aligning, the organization needs, the organization strategy with the stakeholder or the society. Those society here would include the local community, the public at large, the different stakeholders of the organization, be it media or be it customers and employees. So aligning, one another very good example which we can take is at the board level or maybe at the stakeholder engagement or stakeholder committee level. A very difficult or important task is to balance the interests of different stakeholders. So the stakeholders will have conflicting interests, and there, your skill, your judgment in balancing those interests is very important. So you can share stories, you can share anecdotes and experiences where you were able to, balance those interests of, conflicting interests of stakeholders.
Sir, if a board gave the only 3 minutes to introduce yourself, how would you coach a leader to use those 180 seconds? Because the number will increase when you say 3 minutes to 180, the number it sounds big, but it's the same time.
Right.
How do we coach them or guide them, sir?
Right. So maybe I would divide the 3 minutes into the three pillars. So 1 minute for the board CV in terms of shifting to governance language, checking each and every element, each and every sentence in your CV, whether it is from the operator mindset or the governance mindset. So that would take 1 minute or the one third part of the time. The second is the content and brand. Now, content and brand actually are different. You know, if you are creating content randomly, then you are not building a brand unless you have decided your brand values, your brand positioning, maybe your brand singularity with a focus on only single area for your brand positioning. So the all these brand archetypes, your all these are very important before creating content. Okay, so you decide your roadmap in terms of, okay, these are going to be my four content pillars, and I want to be primarily known as an audit expert, but I can also contribute to a ESG committee or CSR committee or stakeholder committee. So your primary and secondary strengths have to come in those content pillars. And the third part, which I said, like brand is one, content and this thing CV is one, content and brand is two, and the third is the mindset shift. And the mindset shift, actually, you would agree that mindset shift is the most difficult, because you are programmed, your mind is programmed to think in a certain way, and creating that mindset shift is something which takes the longest time.
You are right in saying that mindset, because most of the people, when they move up the ladder, carry those baggage, saying that an engineer, a lead, a manager, then a senior manager, then they still keep that baggage carried, and they don't think how the board is built, right? The build the board narrative arc, say crisis, decision, stakeholder, some kind of trade-offs, learning, something as governance impact, right? So these are pointers, I think, few pointers that they need to shift from one place to another place, and that makes a lot of difference. Now, emphasizing that calm, confidence, brevity, and clarity also, or some of the some drama will happen in the boards where you'll have to adhere and see how that can make a decision, and you give the right picture also is very important, is what I am trying to get, or in whatever senses that you are giving me to understand. Now, what inner mindset shifts must the CXO make to operate as an effective independent director? Because currently I see there is a lot of scope for independent directors, and you initially stated, and in other podcasts also we got to understand the indigo crisis. There are a lot of independent directors who were left, is what I understand. I'm not sure whether that's the right message that I've got or what, so I wanted to understand from your point, sir.
Yes. So there are so many mindset shifts which are required. And I remember a powerful statement coming from a chairman of an organization where I was working. And he said that, fresh MBAs have a certain advantage which experienced people do not have, is that, they do not have a baggage. And what he basically meant, or maybe in simple words, I would say, is that experience gives you wisdom, but experience also gives you baggage. In terms of, let's simplify it, maybe you have worked in an executive role for 30 years. You have operated, you have worked with the operator mindset for 30 years. Now, shedding that 30-year mindset and moving on to a governance mindset requires lot of conscious effort. Moving into a oversight mindset from a doing mindset requires a lot of conscious effort, requires a lot of conscious leadership, and being aware of, okay, am I performing as a operator or as a governor? So that mindset you have to really work hard. Am I deciding the limits of the playground, or have I started playing in the playground? So am I using the governance language or am I using the operator language? So, this mindset shift, I think, requires the, most hard work.
Now, how does a leader see? As you rightly said, leader is learned so many things and he's carrying baggage. Now
Right.
there is some place he has to unlearn also, right? And
Yes.
how does a leader unlearn that habit of solving everything and moving towards asking better questions instead? Is what we want to understand from you, sir. How is that looking forward?
Yes. So at the first level, it is about, like, you might have heard that famous saying that, if you practice something for 90 days, it becomes your habit. So for 90 days, instead of thinking like an operator, for 90 days, think like a, board member, doing oversight, asking questions rather than giving answers, or asking for answers, from your team members. So shifting from an answer mindset to a question mindset. And these questions in the board meetings, actually, we use a very interesting term in board, which we call as catalytic questions. So what is a catalytic question? Catalytic question is a question which becomes a catalyst for discussion, and that discussion, brings insights. That is number one. Sometimes, because the C-suite is often giving all the board actions are actually dependent upon the C-suite presentation, C-suite summaries and reports. So when this C-suite member is, let's say, a CEO or a CFO, is giving a certain presentation to the board, and then the board asks questions, and then, everybody is able to find the answer, to that question together, or draw insights, to find answers.
And there is one more thing is that what is that one belief system that they have, or what's one internal belief executives must let go, because they have a lot of beliefs as a leader or an executive.
Right.
Let go if they genuinely want to succeed and move on to the board. Do you think there is any pointer that you have to let go, sir?
Yes. And, I say that beliefs are the stories which are tattooed on your mind. So I had written this interesting quote that, thoughts are stories we tell ourselves, words are stories we tell others, but actions are the most powerful stories we tell. Okay. So at the boat level also, this is very true. And like you are focusing on beliefs. Now, why I'm saying beliefs are stories tattooed on our mind, because they are etched on our minds very strongly. And questioning your own beliefs, questioning your own biases, questioning your own habit of, getting into the operator mindset, that self questioning is also very important, besides asking, questions in the board meeting. And that self questioning, especially when you are moving from your executive role to board role, and you have not developed the governance habit, at that time, self questioning becomes very important. Am I operating, am I working like a operator or a governor?
Got it, sir. I think what you're saying is move from I own outcome to I ensure governance and
Yes.
accountability for the
Accountability.
outcomes are
Exactly.
managed by the board level guys. So that's that. I think where they need to explore the ego, control, identity tied up to a role or a function, because when you reach to the boards, you are a board member where you will have to discuss with multiple functions, and that's where I think what you're saying is it helps understand the inner rewriting matters that are required for more than simply acquiring the knowledge that they have gained over the period. So I think that's one thing that you are giving in as many. Now coming to how important is it for an aspiring board member to be conversant with technology, AI, and cyber risk, even if they are not from a tech background? Because board guys don't need to be tech guys also, right? So your take on it, sir.
Right. a very important area, and maybe I will set the context to this conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 6 years ago, I wrote this blog, and 2015 was the first time I heard this term martech, marketing technology. Okay. After 2015 only, we have come across terms like HR tech, fintech, ad tech, PR tech, agri tech, retail tech, and So I wrote this interesting article that nobody is single anymore. Everybody is married to technology. Okay, so this I am sharing this as a context because this shows the importance of technology in the boardroom, or importance of technology for every board director. Even if you are the audit committee member, you have to have the basic understanding of technology, cyber risk, cyber security, digital transformation, digital mindset. So you need to have that understanding of the jargon, understanding of the concept. Like maybe at a young MBA level, I use this term conceptual clarity.
Okay.
At the board level also, you need to have conceptual clarity. So you are an audit committee member, and there is a board meeting which is the discussion is going on digital transformation. So you need to have at least the conceptual clarity about what is digital transformation, and how digital mindset plays an important role in digital transformation, and how HR transformation or marketing transformation or finance transformation is part of the digital transformation. What cultural change is required for digital transformation. So that fundamental understanding is important for every board member, not just the technology committee member.
I'll give another example, because when you're saying basics are needed, when
Right.
I was part of Wipro as a delivery manager and global delivery lead, so I went into a meeting and I was surprised that some of the questions I did not know.
Okay.
And at a stage, I think the customer understood that there are no SMEs joining the meeting, so it is the only the managers who have joined, and we did not understand. And one of the SME gave something which did not work out properly as what we planned, and that meeting went for a toss. So in that meeting, what I learned is you don't need to understand everything. You need to understand the important pointers. What is a hypervisor, what is a VMware console, what are the tools that they use, at least the names. So when they talk, you are able to give that names and say, yeah, we have used this hypervisor, we built this on AWS, or we built this on Azure. VMware is a very solid solution. We have virtualized machines from P2V, P2V, P2P, and stuff like that. So those important pointers, at least if you know, the customer will always keep you in mind, saying that these guys at least understand technology, rather than saying. Then I learned something is that I have this information. You need deep dive information. I'll get my SME to talk to you.
Right.
I think that helped me in many levels. Sir, what is the important or what is the minimum level of digital AI cyber security literacy should every modern board level have to be credible with, sir?
Right. A very interesting question, and it reminded me of a RSA framework which I talk about.
Hmm.
So, what is RSA? RSA, the first element in RSA is risks. Okay. So, let's take cybersecurity. So, what are the possible risks if cybersecurity in our company is not good? So, what are the potential risks? The potential risks in banking companies much more higher than in a FMCG company.
Yeah, right.
So, that is the risk. Now, S stands for stake.
Hmm.
What is at stake?
Take.
Is our reputation at stake? Okay. Is 500 million worth of bank accounts which are linked through blockchain or different technologies, what is the amount of money which is at stake?
Hmm.
So money is a very important thing which is at stake.
Yeah.
customer money, especially. What is the reputation which is at stake? If the reputation goes wrong, what is the kind of business losses we can suffer? So, first is risks, second is stakes, and third is the actions which board members should take to minimize those risks. In fact, that is why most of the boards you have a risk management committee.
Yeah.
So risk management committees, I would say after audit committee is a very, very important committee because it tries to minimize the risk. It tries to plan, okay, if certain things go wrong, it is always having a contingency plan. It is always trying to create frameworks for risk. So risk management in that sense is a very important function at the board level.
Sir, you made a very important point, which is risk management. Coming from a technology and cybersecurity background, today what we see is any compromise is a reputational risk that we are seeing today, right? And
Right,
now if you are hit by a ransomware, your data is being leaked, your user accounts are being compromised. These are challenges the tech and the cyber tech guys are facing today. And boards are very particular about if we are falling into one of the brackets where we did not comply, what would be the risk that we have to take, whether it is a financial risk, reputational risk, or a brand image that is going to be hit. So these are the risks that I think the board also has started to look, because part of the cyber security we are talking about, every risk has to be mitigated. As you rightly said, what is the contingency that we are having,
right.
and that contingency is become very very important today. And with that, can a leader still consider board ready if they are uncomfortable with AI, data, or cybersecurity conversations?
Yes, definitely you are not board ready if you are not comfortable with AI technology and cyber security, because that is a very, very important part of the board's function, or it is a very important part for any organization. Whether you are in in agriculture or industry, or you are in FMCG, or you are in durables, it is industry agnostic now. Because why I give the example of HR tech, fintech, ad tech, because technology is a part of every industry. No
Yeah,
industry is not, you can't say we are not using technology. Okay.
yeah.
So we are highly automated or moderately automated or using medium level of technology is fine, but nobody can say we are not using technology.
And many pointers is that they don't need to know everything also. That is one more point. They at least they know the basics. I think then they can navigate, look at the OEMs or the service providers who can help them understand in a deeper level. But they should know what function or what is that AI is going to do if I do certain things. I think that's the basic thing that you are telling us. One final question I'll take before, and then we'll take the takeaways, and then I'll summarize. Sir, one question that I wanted to: how can executives use content and visibility strategies to signal that they are board ready?
Yes, I think that's a very important question at an individual level. Okay. And there is a popular word at top management level, which we say hint language. Okay. So hint language is CEO or a C-suite level is using hint language for with a team member so that he doesn't hurt his ego, so he's giving a hint. Same way an individual is using governance signaling. So instead of saying I'm ready for a board role, you are giving signals to the board community that okay, I speak in governance language, I understand governance, I'm shifting my mindset from an executive mindset to governance mindset. So all these are part of governance signaling. I understand the functioning of the board and its committees. I understand, what are the kind of, let's say, asking questions in the board meetings, or what is a catalytic question, and how do, boards take decisions, what are the roles of the board, from hiring and firing a CEO to deciding the CEO compensation to, making sure. Why do we talk so much about compliance at board level? Because compliance is also a reputation risk. If the government says, okay, you have not met these compliances, and so there will be a very strict action, or maybe we have seen so many cases, even companies like Google have been fined,
Fine. Yeah, yeah.
so many crores of rupees because of compliance issues. So that's why these things are very important. So the executive has to basically understand governance signaling, how to give these signals, in the CV, in the content, how he's maybe shifting his mindset from his or her mindset from executive to governance mindset. So all those things have to come in the form of a signal. And governance signaling is also a kind of hint language, for the board.
Now, I think today with the DPDP coming in, every data is critical, and we are liable for hefty fines up to 250 crores, is what I understand from the DPDP rules side that we are talking
Right.
about. Sir, I would like to summarize what we discussed, as we want to wrap up the session because of certain commitments that we have at 7:30. So I'll wrap up the pointers. Then I have few questions which have come. I'll bring them up, sir. So
Okay.
executive excellence, board readiness. The board demands a different CV, a different story, and a radically different mindset is what I think. That's what we discussed. Board focus on positioning, reframes achievements around governance, risk, long-term value, stakeholder impact, not just operational wins that we've got. So that's one thing that you said. Technology, AI, cybersecurity literacy are now baselines and expectations for credible board members, regardless the function or background. That's what we spoke about.
Right.
Then you spoke about strategic visibility and content that can be quietly signaled board readiness to decision makers long uh, before formal opportunities appear. So, and ethical and emotional readiness is critical. You said mindset, and I'm saying that ethical and emotional readiness is also critical as a skill. Board roles magnify your influence and your exposure. That's what, as a summary, that I could bring up on whatever pointers that we discussed. Now, coming back to the pointers that I've got here, is I'll bring up the comments here. I have Par Srinivas saying very informative session. Thank you, Par, for joining. And I have Ramachandran saying that great session. Thank you, Ramachandran. Then the other question, asking questions rather than giving solutions, is great, from Sridhar, uh, Lieutenant Colonel Sridhar coming in there. And then we have Dhruv saying great storytelling perspective. There is one question which is coming in here, is what about developing systems thinking, sir? So that's one question, sir.
Yes. So, in fact, today I was working on an article on connecting the dots. Okay.
Okay.
And, one of the things which came up was to connect the dot. What are the skills which we need? What are the tools and techniques which we need? And systems thinking in my research came as one of those skills.
Okay.
And
Okay.
at a board level, we are always connecting the dots.
Okay.
We are connecting the dots in terms of the market gaps.
Yeah.
We are connecting the dots in terms of, maybe nowadays, for example, a very very important issue for the board is the international instability, and so many things are happening at international level. So we have to connect the dots in so many ways, and systems thinking becomes a very important skill for connecting the dots.
Thank you for that, sir. Next question is Yvonne D'Souza says, this is a wonderful session, especially corner to executive mindset to be been in the boardroom meeting mindset. Great style of showcasing boardrooms. This is one thing, and then we have one more pointer from Sridhar sir saying that technology appreciation is critical, not necessarily a competency. I agree, it's not a necessary because that is the statement I made when I was a global delivery head for Wipro, where we said you need to understand basics, otherwise you will be left around when the customers talk to you, and that's very important. Sir, your take on it, sir? Any pointers that you want to add?
Yes, I would repeat the same thing, the conceptual clarity, which is understanding the basics and understanding the interrelationships.
Mm.
Okay. So, what is the relationship of marketing with HR or HR with technology, so understanding the relationship, because at the board level, you need that systems thinking, you need that bird's eye or holistic view, not a boxed view.
Again, you're talking about connecting the dots, is what I
Right.
take from your. Then we have Dhruv Raj. How should one approach his own career, building up strategy across domains or mid-term, or as one prepare himself a leadership role, especially keeping in mind over the careers which is often defined in vertical side of specializations.
Right. So, here one thing which is coming out is also the industry on sector which will have its own unique challenges. So, though generally the boards are industry agnostic, but having the industry background can be helpful, though at the board level another or the more important part is rather than the industry, the more important part is the domain in terms of the committee. You are fit for the audit committee if you have a audit background.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, sir. And last one pointer that we have is very useful information. Vulnerabilities of today are different. So these are the pointers that we had as comments coming in, sir. And with this, I think as we close, remember this: the boardroom is not a reward for a long-term career; it's a responsibility, is what we are saying, for a sharper, wiser, and more accountable one today. If you feel the conversation that we had with Dr. Amit Nagpal has nudged you to think your CV, your content, or your mindset, that's your signal. Start redesigning now, and then I think the opportunities will appear. If you want to connect to Sir, I'm bringing up his link here. You can connect to Sir on his profile. That's a QR that is there, and I'm also scrolling the link of Sir on LinkedIn, which you can connect and talk to Sir and see if there is anything that you can do. Follow us, and we have streamed this podcast live onto LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram parallelly. So do let us know if there is anything that you would need to know on the CV writing or coaching stuff, which Dr. Amit Nagpal sir could help. Sir, any last minute pointers that you want to add before we conclude, sir?
yeah, so I would say prepare a 90-day plan.
Okay.
Like we have a 90-day habit plan, so prepare a
Hmm.
90-day mindset plan. So in the 90 days, I have to shift from mindset to a board mindset, with
Okay.
that plan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, audience, for joining. And with this, we would like to conclude our session for today. And we'll meet again next week on a different topic. And thank you, sir. Thank you, and good day.
Welcome. Thank you.